Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, and today, as my mic arm squeaks, I'm going to talk about Squid Game Season 2, Episode 6. It's called O's and X's, or just OX. So, spoilers for the episode. We left off at just the start of the next game with the last episode, with the sort of the big, roundabout, merry-go-round, where they say a number and they have to form teams of that number and then run into one of the doors. If they have the wrong number of people in one of those rooms, that's it. They're killed. They're out. If they fail to form a team at all and not get to a room, they're killed. They're out. And that's the idea. And I got excited when they showed, or they revealed what this was at the end of the last episode, because I saw a lot of potential for alliances and double crosses and people being forced to make tough choices about who to side with, and we get all of that. We honestly, the first 15 minutes of this episode was pretty much a masterclass in just a lot of different moments designed to move characters forward and force them into different situations, to force different relationships to either get stronger or break down. There's a great tease with the front man, with Jung-jae, who, this is right at the end of it, admittedly, but when they have to get into teams of two, the front man kills someone. They're in the little room, and there's already a guy in there, and he won't leave. So the front man's solution to this is to kill him before the countdown timer's done, and therefore there's only two living people in the room, and therefore they get to live. And this sets up a whole thing where Jung-jae, throughout the rest of the episode, is kind of side-eyeing him. He's kind of worried. He's seen a bit of his true self come out and is concerned. And it's especially good during the vote that happens later on, where it gets down to number one, the front man again, to sort of maybe decide things at the end. And admittedly, he can only tie it up. He can't win it for the levers, the X's. But there's this great moment where the X's all think they're going to win, and Jung-jae turns around and just looks at the front man standing there very stoically, and just has this sinking realization that he's not sure if he can actually trust them to make the choice they want him to make. That was a fantastic moment, and it was born out of that earlier scene with witnessing the kill. I thought that really advanced things, and having this one cat, because I was actually convinced Jung-jae was going to die at one point here. On the way to the room, he gets kind of tackled and sort of pushed behind, and I thought, oh, he might be a character who dies here. You know, the girl that I thought would die in this game did die, right? The sort of the nice one who was getting friends with Ha-joon. She kind of gets, pushed away at one point and can't get to the room, and it's actually the crypto guy who kind of steals her place, and he tries to justify it by saying that there wasn't enough time to get her in there instead of him, so it had to be him. And it's a kind of a tense moment, but it's heartbreaking. The Hindu's watching through the little the slit in the door, and the close up of the eyes of her begging to get inside, and then the gunshot and her falling to her death. It's all very traumatic, and it wasn't ruined by the fact that it was obvious she was going to die, right? Because it was painfully obvious last episode that she wasn't making it out of the next game. But it's forward character development for Ha-joon. She now has motivation to change her vote. She's been traumatized, because that's the thing when we get to the vote. All the sympathetic characters, any of them who had voted Circle before to stay, they pretty much all switched to X. They all switched to leave. We're at that point now. In fact, one of the most satisfying things in the whole episode I felt was the few people who were changing from one to the other. The triumphant way they were ripping the circles off their Velcro and handing them over so they could put the X on proudly was a satisfying little string of events. But yeah, so the opening game was great, right? There's a lot of good stuff. Thanos is a dick to people and kicks them, is constantly betraying people. The guy they keep bullying, Min-soo, he has a moment with the girl in that kind of team that he's obviously shared a few moments with in the past episode or two, where they have to go down to 3, and it's 4 of them, And Thanos says, let's do rock, paper, scissors to decide who stays in a team of 3 and ditches whoever's left. And she puts out her hand as if to say, hey, Minsu, let's just go on our own and find someone else. We don't need these 2 assholes. And Minsu gets scared and holds out scissors. So her hand that was being held out to take his hand looks like paper. And he basically screws her over. Now, she survives. She's able to get into a different room. But it's just a little moment where when they all step back out of the rooms after the bodies have been cleared out for the next go-round, like there's just, again, there's a lot of good staring at each other in this episode. Between characters. I really like that. And there's great moments. Probably the biggest thing that I've not mentioned, because I doubt I'll remember every little detail of this game, because there was a lot of steps to it. Because there's a lot of rounds, there's a lot of like people betraying and whatever. I mean, the very first round is like 10 people, so like both groups of 5 that we kind of know. 5 and 4. But like they basically join into one big group, and it kind of starts to merge them. And later on in the episode, it feels like they're all kind of sitting together. So it feels like the group that was the mother and son and Ha-joon are with Gi-hun's group now with everyone else, and they're intermingling a bit more. And there's a great little moment, which actually feeds into the best part, which is the mother and son element of this. This was just fantastic from start to finish, right? There's a round where they need 3 people. Again, it's the 3 people round. That seemed to cause a lot of problems for people, because there's a lot of people who were in 4s and whatnot. So there's a lot of pairs looking for a third person. And as the mother and son are looking for a third person, 2 guys just run up and grab him. And just sort of almost force him with them to go to a room. And he is struggling. He is trying to get back to his mother. But there is definitely a point when they get near the door when he kind of gives up and stops trying. And she's left there standing, and she kind of accepts it and is happy that her son's going to be safe. And at the last possible second, it's Gi-hun and the front man who grab her arms and sort of like carry her into a room. And like, so that's a great moment in and of itself, but it's all the stuff that comes out of it after. It's some of the front man's like sort of meddling kind of starts to come out here, where he starts to like ask her questions about, oh, where's your son? Did he leave you on your own? Like, it's almost like he's playing like a battle of ideologies with Gi-hun still. He wants to show that people are bad, that they are the worst, that they are greedy, that they will make selfish choices. And it's so sweet about this scene is that the mother gets angry at him and says, my son's a good boy, and chews him out. And eventually the front man kind of stands down and says and apologizes for speaking about something he doesn't know. But he's done the work, right? You can see the look on Gi-hun's face, like being kind of hurt by this entire sequence of events, that it's so traumatic to even see this and see that someone would do this to their mother. It's a really, really good moment. But that's not even the best part of it. The best part of it is when they all come back out again. And because they all had to split up into groups of 3s, a lot of the bigger groups we knew weren't together anymore. And some of the others, right? So the other characters that know the old lady come up and say, oh, we're so happy you're okay, and they hug her. They all kind of reunite with each other. And at a certain point, one of them says, oh, where's your son? And the moment where the son character walks over with the guiltiest look on his face, like he is traumatized at what he kind of did, right? And I say kind of because, it's not like he made the choice to go do it, but he did kind of stop fighting it at a certain point. And obviously there was a moment when he was looking through the hole in the door, trying to see if his mum was still out there and getting shot. But like this moment, and it's such a sweet scene, because the mum goes over to him and hugs him and assures him that she's happy that he's alive and that she's okay, and tries to make him forget what happened as he breaks down in her arms. Like, he is distraught. It's such a good moment. It's great because it's not like some malicious thing that he decided to do in advance. It's not whatever. He was kind of put in a situation where he just kind of made this choice, and it made him feel awful. And I think one of the sweetest things about the season so far, and certainly this episode, is the old lady. His mum has been such a central like heart to a lot of things that's going on, Both her trying to like shepherd her son to do the right thing at various points, her relationship with Hyun-joo and like her acceptance of her, and then here this kind of like trying to reassure him it's okay, it's forgotten. Even if she is maybe deep down she is hurt, and she's kind of trying to convince herself. I don't think she's trying to convince herself purely for the sake of she just can't accept it. I think on some level she has to convince herself so that she can convince him, because everything will break down between them if she lets it be that to her. She has to make sure he can sort of move through this and move on from it. And it's a really touching moment, and everyone's watching as it plays out, of most of her main characters anyway, that are in the sort of the good guy teams, if you will. So yeah, I loved all of this. All of this game I think it is the best game of the season. You know, it's hard to compare it to the red light, green light, but that was in season 1 as well. I think compared to the rainbow mini games game, I do think this is the better one. That was good, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of good stuff in that, but I think this, like, I don't really have a fault with any of this. It pushed all the characters in different ways, forced them to be in situations, and hell, even the thing with the front man showing his true colors a little bit to one character, that happens right after he's like making friends again and making jokes about how, if we don't need one more person because we've got a pregnant lady, the baby's here, and he's smiling, he's laughing, everyone is enjoying his presence. Which, by the way, when they needed to split up for whatever the round that was, he just kind of disappeared and we never saw him go into a room. So I do think there's the possibility he just, you know, went through a door and stayed there, and that was okay for him because they know he's in charge. But you know, so super interesting. And the thing about this though is that they get to, after this game, they go back to the big bedroom, and it's like, okay, we're going to vote again, we know that. And Gi-hun even says someone should go around and count all of the circles so that we know where we stand. And there's a great little bit here actually where the frontman says, I guess we should hope that more circles died than X's. And then you just see Jung-bae's face kind of look a bit like, that sounded a little bit morally dubious, that sentence, and given what he just witnessed him do to survive, sounds a bit suspicious. But they get back to the bedroom, and it quickly becomes this numbers game of, okay, there's slightly more circles left than there are X's. And they work out that they need 6 to change their minds, and that would tie it up. 7 would win for the X's and let them leave. And there's a great debate here where Gi-hun's like, we have to go and try and convince some of them to change their minds. And the frontman says, no, we can't do that. That'll just lead to violence. And while I do think he's got ulterior motives for not wanting to go and convince them, he still kind of got a point. Like, it might actually lead to some violence. It might cause a conflict if some of them who are determined to get to the final game see you meddling. It might escalate to something. So they kind of realize, okay, well, we know one's changing because Jung-bae's like, yeah, I'm going to change. Yeah, I'm definitely going to the X this time. We don't need to play any more games. So we know that. Ultimately, you know, during the vote, we do see a few different characters change their minds. Hyun-joo's one for sure. The son of the mother and son is another. These are the sort of the bigger, more, you know, obvious ones. There's a few, you know, red shirts that also change. There's also one woman who changes from an X to a circle, completely defined. Like, everyone should be way more scared about dying now, and the money's so much higher that why anyone would change, but one person does. And it really does lead to the idea of, like, would the front man have voted X still if that woman had not changed and the X's were 1 up? I would be willing to bet the front man would have switched the circle to tie it up for the other side. But because the circles were already up by 1, he got to just tie it for everyone. And that was it. But there was a good bit of tension there. It was, I think this idea of trying to win the votes is really drawn out at this point because and in a good way, because it's always been these votes where they have to do them immediately, and when the tie happens, immediately it's like, hey, what happens now? And they say that you vote again. In the event of a tie, you vote again, but you don't vote again till tomorrow. You've got a day to think about your options. So it just so happens in the dinner they get that night, they're giving forks. And it's a great reveal where people have been eating for a while, and it's not until like tensions start getting up there that Gi-hun unwraps his food and sees a metal fork and goes, oh no, this could be a weapon. And it feels all very intentional. It feels very manipulated. There's a reason why the front man changes his tune after this vote. Because before the vote, he was convincing Gi-hun, no, we can't talk to them. We can't convince them to switch sides. After the vote, and maybe even after he's seen what they're getting for dinner, he starts saying, hey, we should probably do what Gi-hun said and try and maybe get a couple of them and maybe talk them over to our side. Clearly, now that they've handed everyone something that can be used as a weapon, I think they want the conflict. They want some of the exes to be killed, so, or at least scared enough, via violence or threats of violence, that they switch sides back to circle. And of course, Thanos and his goon are bullying, what's his name, Minsu in the bathroom, which actually leads to a big finale moment, which is that Crypto Guy actually is the one that steps in and tries to defend him, standing up to Thanos, which is an interesting turn. It feels... He's kind of an interesting character in this episode, actually, because I've not really talked about all of his stuff. Obviously, I said that he kind of ran in and stole the place of the other girl, which got Hyun-joo very upset at him, but ultimately, the big scene he had after that was with Jung-jae, who he wants to basically say, hey, when we get out of here, let's start again, we can put our money together. But she very quickly rebuttals this, because he says that he wants to pay off his debts and then use the rest of the money that they've got together to invest in some new things that he's heard are good ideas. And it kind of feels like he's chasing the dragon again. And she's like, no, you just want my half of the money that I'd get. So no, I'm going to use that to raise the child and you can piss off. But notably, as they're having this little dispute, Thanos and his goon see it and kind of become aware that he is connected to her, that they might be involved in some capacity. They don't know exactly what it is, but they suspect that he cares about her. And this kind of comes back at the end of the episode when Thanos is telling him to get lost. He says that he still owes him money, and that when he gets out here, or whatever, he's going to take his money and he's going to take her and make her his, and says that she'll like it. Which, what I liked about this confrontation moment is that the Crypto Guy tries to throw a punch in anger and Thanos just dodges it, but then Thanos hits him with the first punch that actually connects, and then it becomes a struggle and a fight. The other part of this, of course, is that even before that first punch is thrown, thinking on his feet, the Crypto Guy actually yells out to other exes in the bathroom, hey, these circles were trying to intimidate one of ours into switching sides. So he gets a lot of and it's kind of going back to what I was saying, how it's basically put them into two teams. And I think it's actually kind of smart that it's taken a few episodes and a few votes for those teams to solidify, because there was some characters that we sympathize with who were having, understandable reasons why they were still voting to stay, why they still wanted to get the money because they needed it for whatever reason. And there was characters we respected that were still making that choice. But this is the episode where everyone is convinced that this is so evil and traumatic, what we're going through. The prize money's high enough. And it really feels that over these past 3 episodes, these factions have really solidified. And who really believes in either side have really kind of picked their places. So now it is this war, and this battle that sort of starts in the bathroom is a straight up fight between the two sides, at least the ones that are in the guy's bathroom at the time. So I was wondering, what's this? How's this going to end? I get, because we get to the final moments and Thanos has got his hands around around the crypto guy's neck and he's strangling him, and I thought, oh, is he going to kill him? Is this how this version of the teams or the players are going to learn that killing someone like this will add to the prize money? And I was also thinking, oh, maybe like the front man, number one, he'll come in and like tackle him because he's been kind of coming in and like stopping him occasionally throughout the season. No, this is where they reveal the fork. We just hear kind of a stab sound, and I thought, oh, he's been stabbed from behind with a fork. But no, it's actually Crypto Guy who has stabbed him. Well, I think it's him anyway. We only get one quick look at the actual, thing, so maybe they'll show me more next time. But you just see a fork that's come up under his chin and stabbed him into his mouth. So Thanos won't be dead from that, but he will be upset. I think it's fair to say. He will be pretty upset. In fact, he might be especially upset because will he still be able to rap and run his mouth the way he's been doing after this? I don't know. This might silence him for a little bit, or at least muffle it to an extent. So there's things there. So I like that. I was kind of skipping over some stuff because the episode for me like boils down into two real things. It's the game at the start, which is the first like 20 minutes, and then the discussion about, and then the vote itself and the aftermath of it is kind of the other big part, and those are kind of where it is. There's some other things in there. For example, the game at the start, the shaman lady is with the whole team for the Big Ten count, but when they have to split up into a number where they have to cut a person, the rest of them just kind of go without her, and she feels rejected. So when they get back after the game, she comes up and tells them she's put a curse on them all. And I will say, I really like the performance on the actress because she does this little sort of like cheeky, evil look as she walks out of frame at the end of the scene, which I really enjoyed. And the mum says, she's just insane, it's not real. But then she sort of does a little cleansing thing to herself, her son, and then Ha-joon behind her. And the mum's kind of sweet, and all the rest of it. From a filmmaking perspective, I really enjoyed how they did the voting this time, because they did like a split screen thing where you could see the lights shooting up at the people who were pressing the buttons, and you could tell because they've got their badges on if they were picking the same color that they were before, the same extra circle. And I think it was a really neat visual way to get across a lot of these votes very quickly. Not that that's been a problem up until now, but it made it feel a little bit different from the other ones. It made it feel like the battle line is drawn. It's literally a split screen, and the battle line is drawn at this point where the who's on either side solidified so much that they can literally just be in two separate windows as we see them make their votes. So, yeah, liked all that. That was all good stuff. Super excited to see the fallout of this battle. This is kind of what Gi-hun's been worried about in terms of the fighting starting. It's interesting. This is what we're kicking off the final episode of the season with as we go into the next one. It does kind of feel at this point that we're not going to be, finishing this round of games this season. I knew it was going to be a cliffhanger, but now that we've only got one episode left, it does feel like no, there's more than one game left. So I think season 3 is going to have the rest of this round. But we'll see what they do with that. But yeah, I thought this was a fantastic episode, actually. Like, I know I've not mentioned the outside stuff yet, but I'll get to that in a second, because that's the weakest part of the episode by far. But I think everything here plays on what I really like about Squid Game. Yes, you've got the fun game, for sure, but it's not really about just the fun of the game and the thrills of the game. It's about how all these characters are forced to react to each other and work together or work against each other, and possibly revealing some of their true natures as it goes. And given that this season's been kind of framed around this idea from the end of season 1, this battle of ideologies of people can be good, they can do the right thing, and all through the season, Gi-hun's been forced to witness this very close 50-50 kind of battle. The votes have all been pretty much very close. Yeah, the second vote was a bit more one-sided, but not by a ton. It was like a 60-40 as opposed to just one vote splitting the difference. So that battle and seeing these little things play out and seeing characters fall victim to their greed or have a moment of weakness, and other characters stepping in and being heroic in the moment and doing the right thing and looking out for the others. caring about each other when they go. And then at the center of all that, you've got the front man who is acting like that, but is actually kind of there to manipulate. And at least I suspect he's there to manipulate. It felt like he was manipulating some things this episode. It felt like there was some tensions rising because of him. So that stuff is wonderful. I love it. I really, this is exactly the sort of thing that I love this show for. The one slight thing is the stuff on the outside's kind of just whatever. Like it's just not that interesting. the search for the island from Jun-ho and the team just isn't that exciting, and it just kind of feels like, honestly, if we didn't see you until you were actually going to show up on the island, I think that would be okay. But I feel like Jun-ho was such a major character in season 1, they feel the need to cut back to him and feel like he's got a plot, and it just, like, there's nothing to it really. They're looking for the island. Yeah, they try and spice it up this episode by having like the drones, and they find like a metal kind of door on one of the islands, and it ends up in a trap with an explosive in it. And it's like, oh, they know we're looking for them. They'll set booby traps. Well, yeah, we already knew that the bad guys knew they were looking for them and looking for the island, because they took out the tracker that was in Gi-hun's mouth at the start early-ish in the season. So it's not really new information that they know that this team's looking for the island. I don't know. There's nothing really that interesting, but it's not terrible. And to be fair, it doesn't take up a lot of time, right? It's very brisk, which I appreciate, because if it took up like a bigger chunk of episode, I think it would be more of a problem. I think as it is, it's just kind of there. Like, all the good stuff's on the games on the island, and those are the characters that I care about. There's so many compelling characters, mostly sympathetic ones, but a few that aren't, in the game itself. I care about those relationships forming. I care about Gi-hun's like kind of like his belief in the human spirit being tested. Like, that's the stuff I'm super invested in, and then the thrill of the games themselves. The looking for the island's just kind of like, some dudes in a boat. Oh, one of their guys died in the booby trap. Oh well. Yeah, so anyway, that's my thoughts on the penultimate episode of Squid Game Season 2. Very, very good. I am excited for the finale. I'm a little bit worried that this cliffhanger is going to sting. The good news is that I would hope that because they basically shot Season 2 and 3 together, that Season 3 may only be, like the end of this year. Come on, Netflix. Do one good thing. You keep making bad decisions as a company. Do one good thing for us, will you? The question is that once Squid Game's done and Stranger Things is done, because that's final season's coming this year, is like, will I care about anything on Netflix after that? Because it's not looking likely at this point, but we'll see. We'll see. But that's the review, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it. You can, of course, support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep everything coming. But that is me, so thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?